We're going to talk about 2025, dreams, vision, goals, and the obstacles that prevent us from doing that. So I want you to imagine it's the end of 2025 and you're sitting there and you're looking back at the year. How do you want to feel in that moment based on the things that you did or the things you accomplished or the roadblocks you overcame? So I want you to imagine that moment. And what we want to do today is to help give you something, give you some tangible ideas, skills, mindsets that can help you overcome what will likely be the emotional high that we all have in this January to accomplish our goals. But in February, all of us will be sitting on the couch eating nachos instead of going to the gym. With that said, we're going to go to another gym. Jim, take us from here.
Fantastic. Your gym membership can be acquired by emailing me at
jimkarwisch.com or it's formerly
untanglednarrative.com.
untanglednarrative.com.
Yeah.
All right.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity, Jason. This is a great time to be doing this. And I think with what we experienced at the end of 2024 and what we're going to be experiencing soon in the beginning of 2025, I think everybody having clarity and understanding what it is to be successful for their goals is important. And I think a lot of people get confused about what success looks like versus what somebody should be doing. Right. So I should be working out. Well, okay, great. You should be working out. I'm just using the example you gave a minute ago. We say we're going to go to the gym, and if we don't have a clear enough reason why we're going to go to the gym, if it's just, I know I'm supposed to, and so I make a resolution to do it, and then when I fail to do it, I just go, oh well, and we move along. The type of vision casting that we want to be doing today is if you succeeded at the things that you are meant to be doing, the things that are your calling, the things that are important to you, they align with your values, with your own mission. They would make your life incrementally better because you achieved those goals. Those are the types of things that we're talking about. And so when something is worth it to strive for, and you have the momentum and the resources and the community and everything is aligned together, when you hit an obstacle, the idea there is not, oh, I've hit a wall and this is the stopping point. The end of the road is here. And that was a thing I tried to do. It's instead, I expect there to be obstacles. I know where I expect to be. And I'll also be clear here, you may not know what success looks like exactly. And so for most of the people that I work with, what I try to make a baseline is, do you at least know the cardinal direction that you're heading in? So could you tell if you were moving in the wrong direction, even if you can't quantify or be very specific and clear about end of 2025 that would look just like this, right? If you just know that you want an improvement, like for me, I know what financially my 2025 needs to look like in order to be there. And I'm making strides toward that end goal. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it. I have a lot of ideas about it, how it could happen. And I'm also going to be aware of what's working and what's not working, what's getting more attention and what isn't. So we're talking about incremental progress over time, not I'm going to do this perfect at the very beginning. And if I don't do it perfect, I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I want to just interject there and just that idea of commitment, being fully committed versus kind of being on the fence. So I'm a freelancer, and one of the things I wrote in my book, Path to Freelancer, is this idea of these stages of commitment. And the way that I know if someone's going to be successful as a freelancer is really this question of when your bank account is empty and you don't have any clients, what is the next thing you're going to do? That will tell me whether you're fully committed. Now, if the answer is you're going to go find your next freelancing client, then you're going to stick with it. But if your next thing is doing something else, like maybe I'm going to go get a job, that tells me that you're not fully committed. And so that idea of being fully committed, and then it's just a matter of how. It's not a matter of whether you're going to get there. It's a matter of how you get there and maybe how long it takes and how effective you are at getting there. And so you might have to learn along the way so that it's not so tumultuous along the way.
Yeah. And I think how people set themselves up for success, identifying success and then setting yourself up for success, when people make a wild jump towards something like, I'm just going to be a freelancer and I left my job and now my 9 to 5 regular or 8 to 5 now job. I left it behind, and now I'm going to be a freelancer. And then they meet the moment where their bank account is empty and they don't really know exactly what to do next. And so they go back to what they consider to be safe.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I think, how did you, like, I've seen people make successes of themselves by making a leap. I personally was given an opportunity back in 2014. I did not know what success was going to look like. In fact, when we were talking pre-show with Ross, we mentioned sketchnoting, and that's one of the things that I understood. I thought that if I do this and I add value and I'm around people in an environment where I'm bringing clarity and I'm helping to shape an overall understanding of things in the right spot. So I didn't end up being a sketchnote or a visual graphic facilitator as my job. But that's where I started because I knew the cardinal direction that I wanted to be going in. And so I've done lots and lots of other small things. I've designed a couple of websites in the early days in 2014, 2015. I knew what I wanted to be doing, which was succeeding on my own without being connected to this 8 to 5 type of work.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to be doing something where I was working with people and using my creativity. And the way that my neurodivergent brain works would be an asset to people. How unusual and regular conversation becomes a superpower in certain conditions. How do I put myself in those certain circumstances or conditions? So when you're deciding for yourself what you want in this year and you're trying to make it something that will be sticky and will, you're going to have a greater chance at being consistent and committed, the more clarity you have of the why and the more clarity you have of if I can pay my bills just by being a freelancer, I will consider that a huge success by the end of this year, right?
Yeah.
Versus somebody else who's saying, if I'm at 100K by the end of this year, that's what I will consider to be a success, right?
Yeah.
I need to, so you don't have to compare yourself and your goals with anybody else. The only one that you would be comparing yourself with is who you were yesterday. And your vision is one of who will I be tomorrow or who will I be at the end of the year. So give yourself a little bit of room to change your mind throughout the year, to make adjustments, to overcome obstacles in creative ways without the need to make it fit the mold. I think that's one thing that Jason does a really good job of, is to try and give people a lot of different actions to take so that you can continue doing what it is that you want to do. And I think if you're not already in the mindset at the beginning of the year of, I am going to hit an obstacle, and when I hit that obstacle, the next thing I'm going to do is to come up with a tactic. And that might mean I need to call a particular friend of mine. It might mean I need to read a particular article or a book, or I need to, go to a particular type of conference or meeting in order to get past the obstacle that I'm being faced with. So,
yeah. And I think the importance, that just how important it is to define success, and to do that as broadly as you can and then as specifically as you can. But if it's more broad to start with, that's fine. Like, I've been blogging and podcasting for a decade. Oh, I've been blogging for a decade now, and I've been podcasting for about 4 or 5 years. And I didn't have a specific. I had some sort of broader goals in that. And I'm starting to narrow those in towards some more specific goals. But again, that was okay to kind of start broader and then to narrow those things in. And so I knew the podcast was going to be something that I did and that I grew, and it would turn into something that could then have a lot of benefits and create a lot of value. I just didn't know specifically what that would be or how that would look. So, but by starting the podcast, it got me going down the road far enough that, now over 100 episodes in, I kind of still think of it as beta, but eventually I'll move out of beta mode into normal mode.
Yeah. And even if you never in your mind move out of beta mode, if you are doing the thing that puts you in conversation with like-minded people where new thoughts are happening and where you're being enriched, other people are being enriched, and you are finding it of your own personal value, that's the great thing about things like podcasts or writing your own blog, is you get to define what success means for you, and your success might be somebody else's failure or vice versa. right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't have 100,000 listeners to my podcast. I'm not doing very well. Versus, even if I didn't publish my podcast, I'm having the right conversations with interesting people. It's keeping me going. I'm talking about things that I believe in, etc. So what are the components of what success would look like? And does it require that you compare yourself to anybody else or to what would be normal in the industry? And if you don't need to, then define your own success in a way that you're likely to succeed, especially in the early days, and that it's in a general cardinal direction of what will mean year-long success or 2025 success, etc.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that I'm approaching things is just not letting perfection get in the way of moving. Because like you said, someone else might be further down the road and they're doing just this fancy high-end production and it looks beautiful and everyone's lit right and their hair is perfect. That might be success for them, but that would actually be failure for me because I'm trying to just move, right? And maybe I get to a point where I'm more refined and those technical details are at a higher level. But I don't want those to stop me from moving forward.
That's right.
Yeah.
Does any of this, Ross, resonate with you as far as what you want out of 2025 and what you're thinking about?
Yeah. The one thing at the moment, after processing a lot of this, thinking about incremental successes, I've already scheduled out blocks of time in each day to get in the things that I want to include in every day. But the one that kind of will domino effect ruin the whole day is if I don't get up to do my workout. And that I'm realizing okay, the reason that I fail at that so many days is because getting up out of a warm bed to lift weights is not very much fun. So I think I need to change that first thing in the day so that I'll get up and not waste the day. And then I think where I'm landing right now as far as the cardinal direction of the goal is by the end of 2025, I just want to know that I am utilizing my resources so well that every hour in my day is being optimized, whether it be for people or my building something new, writing something new, drawing something new. Yes, the incremental thing for me, the very first one that I'll build on will be let's get that first morning routine. Let's crack that code so that'll domino my whole day better.
That's great. And go ahead, Jason.
Well, you respond to him and then I'll throw my thing after that because it kind of is a sidebar.
The first thing there is, right, you have set yourself up. You've got this you have a vision. You have a path that starts with, I get out of bed and I do this workout, right? So the very first obstacle that you're going to meet, like you said, is the warm bed. And so you have to get out of the warm bed in order to do it. But what happens when you can't work out, but you want the rest of your day to be a success, right? And so the value of breaking up the components of what does that workout actually mean? How much of it is about my body moving? How much of it is it about my brain being clear? All these types of things. And if I can't work out, something happens, what's the minimum viable set of actions that would get me where I need to be so that I can live my day?
Yeah, and my thought right now is let's put the workout later on in the day when my energy is better and I'm not trying to crawl out of a bed into a cold room. So my first thing that as we're talking is one of my goals has been a continuing goal is to build this Christian devotional app. And what's really easy to do is to reach over, do my quiet time for the day in my app that I've built. Lets me see little glitches I need to fix, which transitions me a soft transition into when my quiet time is over, I'll pull up my computer and then so it's automatic. This feeds into the other. It fuels me. The first thing is super easy. I'm still in bed, but then the inspiration kicks in when I realize, I need to fix that glitch. So that'll pull me out of bed after I've had this warm up to my day.
That's
right now,
fantastic.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about,
ahead.
There's a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which is amazing. And he talks about the idea of keystone habits. And that's exactly what you're describing is this keystone habit that's like this snowball effect for all the other habits. And I like the idea. I think either doing something easy, like in your case, the app. It could also be something that you want. I make my tea in the morning. So that's something I enjoy doing. And so it's more motivating. But if you have something that's enjoyable, that is pulling you out of the bed, and then maybe you do the workout after that, you know? So I like that idea. One other thing I would say, so you do have this app. Is it relevant to anyone that might be listening or watching that is, in terms of reaching their goals, is your app going to help them? Tell us about that.
Sure. Yeah. So the goal in the app is basically helping people live life better and achieve their goals better, but starting from rooting your spiritual being in a good place. So it's got some just some 1 minute meditations where you're like, okay, what am I grateful for? What do I need, to like ask God for help for? And it kind of get some inspiration going early on, get some instruction going on. So like hopefully, my matrix for decision making is like informed by the Bible and Christian belief system. So that'll get me set up in place. But then the fourth screen is looking at my goals for the day. And there's even a place where it'll ask, okay, let's analyze the week. What went well last week? What do you want to do next week? What are the specific action steps that you want to do to get there in several categories that you define? Yes, the app is also.
Yeah, so what's the app called if someone wants to go download it, and where can they download it?
Thank you, Jason. It's called the Creature Habits app on both app stores. Creature Habits app.
Okay, so Creature Habits apps. Who's a good fit for that? App?
Christian people. I have a tender heart in my spot for folks who have been in the church a long time and have gone through doubt and still kind of land at a place where they're like, yeah, I'm a Christian. I know the difficulties with it, but I still choose to be in. And especially those people who are just so burned by really corny Christian radio and Christian movies and such. This is supposed to be done with a lot of beauty and eye for aesthetics and like corny. I'm allergic to corny, so trying to make it not that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That is the meditation screen.
Cool. And all the
Fantastic.
art is either stuff created by you or that you've sort of used a Skynet to help you generate?
Yeah, I use Midjourney for a lot of it. Every now
Yeah.
and then I have a guest artist who will do that day's piece of artwork.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Thanks,
So
Jason.
you're using the app yourself, but because you're trying to make the app better, then you also see like little bug fixes you want to fix. So you then shift to work mode, right? Is that...
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've been trying to think. I've read like Tiny Habits and Hooked is another really interesting when you apply habit making to product design. But it really is like, okay, how can I use the circuitry in my brain instead of using like drawing from this well of self-discipline, which it'll run down, eventually you'll be like, I just don't have the energy to do this next thing on my to-do list. But if I can set them in an order where one thing gets me inspired to do this thing, where I'm really harvesting dopamines in the places, from this thing to push me into my next habit. So I think going in towards 2025, I'm just thinking like, how can I optimize my circuitry in my brain, harnessing the triggers for dopamine and setting things in such an order where I'll use your fixes, Jim, where like, okay, if this happens, which stops my routine, what is my workaround? Quick workaround. I want to just optimize all those days, all those hours of my day, so I'm not just spending it on just random YouTube videos and stuff.
So do you have something, Jason?
Well, I was going to say, you're trying not to let the machine eat you and spit you out.
The thing that brings up too is minor inconveniences, or I can't do the one thing that I wanted to do. Another thing that's going to be an obstacle this year at some point in time for most people, unless they're just super great immune system, never go and shake hands with people, you're going to get sick at some point in time this year. And when you get sick, you're going to need to have a vision for, I'm going to have a period of time where I am the least of myself. I am I'm the worst off that I'm probably going to be this year. I got the flu, I got COVID, I got whatever, and I'm really just dragging along. I can barely do the necessities, right? Like I got a shower in and I ate food and that's my success for today. So when we look at obstacles that are going to occur, people don't like to think ahead about or predict that something is going to happen. We like to think, oh, well, hopefully it doesn't happen. And that by itself could mean the end of the thing that you wanted to be doing. Personally, if I spend too long away from the project that I'm working on because of something, and I don't have a predetermined way to get back on track again, the thing won't just not get done. it will disappear from the landscape of my life, and I will forget about it. And then somebody later will be like, well, how was that thing you're doing, Jim? And I'll be like, I don't even know what you mean at this point. It's completely gone. So at some point in time, you knowing what your cardinal direction is, you knowing what success should look like, and knowing that you're going to have obstacles throughout the year means that you're not going to have a perfect year. And you shouldn't even start with the idea of it being a perfect year, because as soon as you fail to have a perfect year, why keep going? It's already not, it can't get perfect again because it's already, right? So when people become too absolute that something has to be a particular way in order for it to be a success, know this, you have the ability to redefine success at any time. And you also have the ability to reframe failure at any time. So if you have something where you failed, but it informs you of exactly what you would need to do next time in order not to fail, now it's a success, right? So as we're going along, the iterative nature of heading toward your vision includes failure, and it should not just accept that failure or obstacles or getting sick, all this stuff is going to happen in general. It should really be like a very practical thing, right? I may feel completely different tomorrow when I wake up than I did today when I woke up.
Well, and I think it's just the idea of progress, moving, right? Like getting out of bed is a step. You may not get to the gym, but if you can create a habit of getting out of bed, and so that's, whether it's writing, my goal might be to write a certain number of blog posts or another number of podcasts or finish my book. For me, it's finishing my third book. And that book has taken me 4 years, and I wanted to finish it after 2. So I'm 2 years behind schedule. But part of that was because it was such a bigger project than I anticipated. So there was that piece of it, and then it's just been harder than I was expecting. And there's a lot of roadblocks that I've hit along the way that I wasn't expecting. And so it just feels like it's just beating me up. But anytime I can just at least make a little progress, I'm so grateful for past Jason that did that, because I'm like, wow, I can't believe where I'm at now because it's been so hard.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example of a particular project that's going on for so long that you feel like you didn't realize it was a marathon you were starting when you began.
Yeah.
And somebody just informed you, what you thought was halfway through is actually just the beginning, right? Like, about now I should be finishing up. Oh no, you're not just finishing up. So I think the nature of the beast that you didn't know when you started this particular book was, it's a different kind of book than other things that you've written. It involves different approaches or components or types of knowledge, or for you to think in different ways. And then lots of other life obstacles and things that pop up along the way. So if you look at it and you're like, I'm 4 years into this, for somebody else, they might say, well, that's how long it takes to write a book, in my experience, right? They've only ever experienced that's how long, right? And so when I write a book, it takes me this long. Ross?
Yeah.
Jim, I'd love your thoughts on what is the balance of running with inspiration when you feel like you have the creative energy to go for a project versus knowing that we have limited self-discipline that we got to dole out and measure out at different stages where we're like, well, I don't want to do this, but I got to climb that mountain in my head to do my taxes. Do you have a way to balance, like follow every exciting lead that you're excited to do, but then when do you, dish in that self-discipline to keep up with it when the deadlines are missed and when the project becomes a marathon?
So I personally never use self-discipline as a reliable tool. I am someone, it's part of being neurodiverse. The way that my brain works, I fail consistently throughout my life at maintaining almost anything. So if I go into something and it's going to be a long haul, instead of looking at it as I'm going to go this far with this type of energy, when I hit this grind and I have to go the rest of the way just through sheer willpower and force and whatever, I'm like, okay, so right about there is where I would fail if I expected that me trying to just push through it and maintain and keep it going through diligence. If that's what I'm expecting to get me there, I am most likely going to fail at that point. So I back up from that point just a little bit and I say, what thing that it would drive me insane if I didn't get to work on it can align with what I'm trying to do in a way that I can get from that lily pad to that lily pad and keep going. Like I'm currently, it might be a bad word for some people, just depending on their view on it, but I currently enjoy playing around with AI. I use it specifically. I'm creating a database, and whenever I take my notes from life, stick it into AI, and it spits out things in my database already filled out for me, so that I can continue to do further research. When I go into the database, I'm going in there because there's something in there besides just, I got to push through continuing these terms and getting this ready for whatever, right? So it might be I set up for myself that playing with AI in a different way gets me my next step. It might be that preparing for something that I love, like I love to do podcasts. I love to talk to people. I love to be in conversation, right? I love picking other people's brains. I love to be feeling like I'm nurturing myself by taking the very best of what someone else says and applying it to myself, right? So how can I use all of those different things, playing with AI, having conversation, being on a podcast, writing something, whatever, how can I use that to get me that next step along? And so I discovered that if I teach a class on something, the prep that I need for the class, if I align that really selfishly with whatever my next step is, I can get one further step down the road that I might not have done just by trying to get it done when I'm not excited about it.
Well, and one thing that also comes to my mind, you mentioned taxes. So, or two layers to that. One is there's what we want to do, and then there's the reality it takes to do those things. So, like, if I want to run a business, I got to file taxes. Well, I mean, I guess as an individual, you have to file it, but it's a lot easier. But as a business, it's a little bit more a few more layers to it, more expensive. But that's part of owning a business. So, is that really what I want? Because that's part of the deal, Yeah. The orange has a peel, and I have to do something with the peel, So, but the other part of it is, I got audited by the IRS in 2008, and that was like a nightmare situation that lasted several years. And so that also creates a motivating force to like get my taxes done and do it well, get it done fast. And so I always get my taxes done by like the end of February. Like I just want to get it out of the way and move on, So it's kind of like when I accept the reality of it, and then it's just about knocking it out. I think sometimes I might not get around to it because I'm sort of procrastinating in a way that I hope it just disappears.
So if I can use I know, Ross, you wanted to say something, and then I have a practical example of the taxes as a metaphor. But you had something, right, Ross?
Yeah, hopefully this applies enough that you can tie it in. Knowing that we want to fail fast, like we'll try our routine until it breaks. It's so easy to fall off. And even if we've incorporated like workarounds to, how do you work into yourself that regular cadence of reanalyzing your system and resetting new goals? Because it's so easy just apathetically receive it as it comes and just go on without doing that assessment every December 31st. What do you have a way to like increase that rhythm in your life?
Yeah. So let me bring up. I'm going to go ahead and share here. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go into, now this is my branded work, so we're now in untangled narrative territory. This is the core framework, and I'm going to click slideshow, and then you guys are going to tell me if I've succeeded at putting this where you guys can see it really well. You guys can see it, and we're all good?
We're successfully seeing it.
So what I do is I run what I call the narrative action cycle. And I am asking myself at any point in time when I feel like something is wobbling or I need to reevaluate something, I start wherever I need to on this central action cycle. And so a lot of times when I go for this, I go because the first thing is I'm feeling a very strong emotion, and sometimes it's a negative one, right? Mm. And so I go here because of the emotion, and I ask myself, how is this emotion becoming an obstacle for me to be able to do what I want to do next? I'll also ask you, can you see the mouse moving over the things? I haven't used Riverside this way before. Okay. So what is my emotion an obstacle, or is my emotion actually a tactic to get what I want? And So when I come in, you can come in and you can start it anywhere that you want to. A lot of times for me, it starts with emotions, or I realize that there's an obstacle and I start to ask myself, okay, this is a different thing than I've ever dealt with before. How do I get past this? And I go into analysis mode. How does someone reach this point where they're being told a flat out no from the only person who can say yes to this situation? My current understanding is that I've now hit a wall that I can't continue. I can't go forward. So now I go into analysis and I say, all right, I've made the assumption that I can't go any further. And that by itself could be an obstacle. I am being told no by this person. What is the next tactic that I need to take? And notice it doesn't say strategy here. It says tactics. What is the next really clear, simple, theoretically action that I can take to get closer to what I'm trying to do? And then I ask myself, what about the expectation? Am I expecting something too perfect? Am I expecting something that it's going to be, it's not going fast enough, or it's not like, am I putting some sort of an expectation on what I'm doing that isn't realistic? And can I just shift my expectation a little bit? And if I can shift my expectation, because our emotions and our expectations are very tightly connected to one another, right? I've got 5 years of runway is very different than I've got 5 minutes of runway, right? I have the expectation I'll be finished in a year, but it's taken me 4 years to write this book. I'm really struggling, right?
Yeah.
So in this, I'm asking myself at any given time that I feel like I need to reevaluate. I don't ask myself, do I need to reevaluate everything? I just ask myself, where am I? What is it that I'm encountering? And can I do something even minor that could put me on the path again, that could put me back where I'm anticipating going? So can you elaborate a little bit more, Ross, on, like, first off, does what I just said align with what you're asking? And then does this seem like a practical approach to the type of hiccup or roadblock you would have?
Great flow chart here. Super helpful. Okay, so do you have a point where you're like, okay, my day's really busy. I got this obstacle that hit me. I'm gonna like, how do you get yourself to like stop? I'm gonna go look back at my gear flow chart and do these steps. You have like a paper that you're writing on, or like, how do you work that into your routine so that your dopamines and your brain circuitry leads you to do this often? Because the default is to fall into apathy and just keep going and go with the wave, go with the flow.
Yeah. So the very first thing is not as much, at least I wouldn't answer it as much with a when and how do you get back into this. Mine would be, what was it that got you to the place that you took your eyes off of the prize at the end and what you envisioned for yourself as success? Did an obstacle feel like such a crashing wave against you? I think that's the analogy you were making there. The metaphor is the wave hits you and you just feel like you're so worn out from being beaten. You're now swept away and you're not on your path anymore. So if you imagine it as a cardinal direction, no matter what happens, unless the analogy goes weird and somehow I got swept off of the planet into space, then we're going to have a problem with this. But if I'm just hit by the wave and I'm pushed off of my path, if I have a cardinal direction that I'm going in, no matter where I end up, I'm just like, okay, all right, that was a really big hit. I'm feeling very emotional. I might give myself, I might set a timer for an hour or an alarm or something like that to give myself enough time to just, okay, I'm going to just process feeling this big impact. But when that alarm goes off, I'm going to try to find north again. And when I find north, I'm going to ask myself, did the thing that just happened really stop me from what it is that I'm trying to do? Or is it just so emotionally impactful to me that I feel like giving up, right? And what was it that was my expectation or someone else's expectation, a client's expectation, my wife's expectation, my kid's whatever it is? Was it somebody's expectation that made this such a big hit from that wave. Right? If left to in any other circumstance, if I were a bachelor and I got hit by that wave, would it have stopped me? Oh, well, it wouldn't have. Okay, so what is it about me including my wife or my children in this that makes me feel like I need to give up now? It makes me feel so wiped, so I don't know, injured or set back or taken off course, that I don't feel like I don't have what it takes to get back.
Yeah,
Again.
that's great. I see what you mean. So it's in that moment where, like, that hour period of time, that, like, just loss of direction, where you're just like, okay, I don't know who to ask to solve this for me, so I'm going to go to my framework.
Yeah.
That's when it's when you're in that moment of despair or whatever, that you're like, my answer is to go back to the framework.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'll give you an
That's your
example real
trigger.
quick.
Well, I almost think of it
Yeah.
like if you're lost, the first thing to do is look down at your compass,
That's right.
right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
If you feel lost,
and
if you are lost, then get a reference point.
yeah,
Have
Yeah,
the
if you get
habit
good
of
at
looking for
that.
the reference point. Go ahead.
I
Yeah,
love Russ.
if we get used to just knowing that that is the default to keep going back
Yeah.
to, I guess it becomes habit then.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you have your what success means for you, and you've written it out in some way, or you've made some sort, like you, Ross, if I were coaching you in particular, you're a sketch notes guy, you're a visual guy, you love pictures, and that's so I would say, could you create an image that represents beautifully something that would really inspire you, that could represent your true north for this year. And then where will you put it so that your eyes can be on it anytime that you want them to be on it?
Well, and one thing I would add to that too is, like Jim, when I made the comment earlier about being committed to freelancing, not having money, and then you said people go to their safe place. And I think that's whatever that default thing is, we go to the thing that makes us feel safe to do or not do what we need to not do or do. So that default could be changed to something else like this that drives us into some kind of a positive outcome versus maybe a spiraling of sorts.
For myself, and this again goes back to my neurospicy brain, I have a very easy time getting disoriented. And I don't mean physically disoriented, although that happens too. I'm not good with roller coasters and stuff. But I will get, it's not like I get apathetic or disillusioned. I get disoriented, and I kind of lose true north, and I lose for my day. I just kind of get in this weird place. And if something is put away, and I can't see it, it's out of sight, it's out of mind, then it's very likely at that moment of disorientation that I'm going to lose it. That's the moment where I'm not going to go back to what I need to. So this framework started not for clients. It started for me to be able to find my way back to, and I used to not even have this visual. It's just the word goatees, GOATEES. And I would just ask myself, okay, I would go, okay, what was my goal? Right? What is standing in my way right now? All right, let's spend a couple of minutes just thinking about how hard this hit me. All right, this is really emotional right now. Maybe I need to give myself just a little bit of time. Right? And so going into this and having something like this, or just even being able to remember what the original goal was. Sometimes we iterate so much that we forget what the original success was, and we get all into the weeds about a particular thing when that particular thing could just be, you know what, I just got to scrap this small thing. I just got to get rid of it. That's not going to be a thing that gets me where I'm going. Right?
Yeah.
So,
And I think the goal piece is then important too. It's like,
Yeah.
what is the goal? If you don't have one, then that's a reference point you're missing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll tell you a brief thing that when I was younger, my whole world was acting in theater. And it wasn't just acting, it was being involved in anything in the theater, backstage, box office, anything you could I would just loved being in the theater, around the theater. And then one day I decided to go out for a big part. It was children's theater that I was doing. And it was one of the first times that I had auditions for whatever the next play was at our children's theater. It was the first time that I decided what I wanted was more than just whatever part I got. That was a change for me. And so I went into the audition and I was more stressed than I normally would. And I had a higher level of emotion than I normally would. And I felt a little bit more disoriented than I normally would. And our director, she was a really interesting lady. I won't go into that. We don't have that much time. She was a really interesting lady. She was a very, very strong personality, and she was scary if you didn't know her. But she said, this is what's going to happen. You're going to audition. She's saying this to a whole group of kids, right? You're going to audition, and you're not going to get the part that you wanted. Maybe one of you or two of you will, but the part that you have in mind is going to end up, for a lot of you, not being what you get. You're going to go back to your home. You're going to go to your safe place, and you're going to scream in your pillow. You're going to kick your legs. You're going to throw a tantrum. You're going to be as mad as you want to get for a solid 15 minutes. And then after that 15 minutes is done, you're going to and she didn't say reorient. I have no idea at this point in time. This was so long ago. Whatever she said, you're going to come back to the part that you were given. And you're going to do the very best that you can do with that part.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everything just, like, I was like, yeah, I want this part, and I'm going to try to get this part. And at the same time, when it happens that I don't get the part that I auditioned for, I'm going to do her process. I'm going to go and I'm going to just, I'm going to let all this emotion out. I'm going to experience it. I'm going to move through it. And then on the other side of it, I'm going to stop letting myself go further, because any further emotion is not a help now. I've experienced the emotion and I move through it. Now I'm just going to look at what I do have, and I'm going to say, this is where I am. I intended to be on the other side of the river that I'm traveling. What I ended up with was swept downstream by a mile and on the other side of the river, right? But north is still north. And let's start to first off, let's just figure out where north is. Now we got to figure out at some point in time, I got to cross the river again because I'm on the wrong side of the river. But this is where I am. That's where I'm going. Now I just take the role that I've got, and I keep moving. Yeah. So reorienting myself is the hardest part of anything that I do, and overcoming my inability to maintain things just because they need to be maintained is also right. So I have to mitigate the risk and the issues with both of those constantly in order to be successful in anything I do.
And I would say if you're maintaining something, you eventually become bloated if you don't have an audit trigger to evaluate what you're maintaining. And that can be in the moment or over the course of a year or any period between that. So one of the things that I do just as a regular habit is like we're doing right now, we're looking at the year, we're looking ahead, what are we trying to accomplish? I'm casting the vision, setting the goals. And then the second thing I do at the end of the year, which is reflecting back, looking back at the year, what happened, what did I accomplish, what did I learn? And those two habits can be done on a daily basis or an annual basis or a monthly basis or a decade basis, but it's looking forward and it's looking back. And it's those two things that I think that leads to our growth and leads to us making sure that we keep updating and changing things.
This is something that is really useful to me. I don't know if you two have ever seen this before.
I've heard of it.
It's created by a friend of mine, Jason Scott Montoya. And it's incredibly useful because these things, I'm great at ideating, right? That's just something that happens. Even if I've got the flu or I'm on vacation, my brain is constantly doing that. My brain is not great at maintaining and auditing. And if you had asked me what my process was and I led you along what my brain would do, it doesn't do these last two, right? It would just be eyed, right? And we would have problem because every time that I did get to execute, that's great. Good job, Jim. You got to execute. And then the problem becomes maintaining and auditing. So, So the IDEMA framework I've used again and again. I don't remember when you introduced this to me, Jason, but
it was a Matrix program I installed a few years ago.
Yeah. So thanks for downloading that into my brain. You did that about the same time as you let me fly helicopters, which is great. And now I know Kung Fu. So that's it's very, very important. So so I think having something that that triggers this idea. So if you're using Jason's, his could have been done in a circle too. I can imagine it in a circle, like
there's another graphic that's the circle version.
And mine is a circle, right? The circle of that of the action flywheel, right? Narrative action cycle. So if you have something that works for you, I remember this. Yes, I love this graphic version. Yeah, and fun Jason colors too. I don't remember how long ago that was. So. I think that sometimes what we need when we hit those obstacles is we need to go back to our true north. Also, sometimes we need to look at it and we need to say, am I suffering from this thing happening because I failed to maintain? Did I fail to audit? Did something happen along the way where I was just bebopping along, not recognizing that circumstances and the landscape around me were shifting and changing, and now doing what I did yesterday no longer gets me in the right direction of where I'm going? And so if I can do that, I'm not great at maintaining, but I'm better now because of Jason's IDEMA framework. I'm now better at remembering to ask myself about maintaining and auditing.
Yeah.
And so that's a step further. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and each, each of these stages has a sort of a distorted effect if you don't move to the next one. So I remember I had someone that I knew that had this little notebook of ideas, like business or inventions ideas, and he just kept collecting them, and he never did anything beyond that. He just had an idea repository. And so as years went on and decades, he would see these other people would come up with similar ideas and they would do them. And he would just feel sad that he had that same idea and they benefited and he didn't. But part of it was because he never went to the next stage. So.
Yeah, and I remember doing that when I was younger. I would create things in my head, and this is before I realized that what I was an improviser, and that I was going to constantly be doing that. But to feel upset about someone else having the same idea that I had, and they actually did it, that was wrecking me sometimes, and I didn't need to let it wreck me because all I really needed to do was say, I had no intention of making that thing a reality. Right? I had the idea, but I'm not the person you would go to go make a new mechanical such and such, or to, I'm not going to go find the person who can do blow molding to create this particular object. That's not what I'm going to do. And so when I have an idea, it's cool. That's what my brain does. It ideates all the time and I can't seem to stop it. And going to sleep at night is difficult, right? Doesn't mean that I'm going to follow through and make each one of these things happen. And for me to identify what my skill sets are and what my true north is, and to be able to find the things that idea actually would work for me. It involves all of my favorite things, and it would work within my normal. It doesn't require me to maintain things over time. It requires me to do something really cool and fun with a bunch of other people on a specific date and time. Yeah. Right? Boom. That's when I should, right? Now, if somebody else gets there before me, right, they're in the space that I was going to, and they're like, no, we're already doing this workshop. You don't need to be here. Then I would be frustrated, right? Yeah. But I think knowing what it is that you're actually going to accomplish is important. Yeah. And so either don't get upset when somebody else does it first, or I may not be able to do all my ideas, but a process for figuring out which of these ideas needs to go forward and doing discovery on it, and right, which of these things is viable, which of these things isn't going to have ridiculous numbers of obstacles to where I eventually feel like I'll never get it done and I want to quit. Yeah.
So Jim, I guess bring us home. Let's wrap things up and close us out here.
Yeah, I think, and Ross's was a great example earlier on when you talked about taxes. If there is something that you are avoiding, like doing your taxes and you're procrastinating, or there's just something that's a really difficult part of what it is that you're trying to do, that's the obstacle. Right? Yeah. And if you just lay down and stop, you're eventually going to hit like all procrastinators do, by the final 5 minutes that you have to do your taxes before they have to be turned in. So when you hit that part where you recognize in yourself that you're procrastinating something or that you've got an obstacle in your way, try to align yourself with something that will continue to move forward in spite of you, in spite of how you function.
Yeah.
I personally, on the idea of taxes, mine is that my best friend and improviser from years ago, Chris Pierce, I contacted him. I said, will you do my taxes for me every year? Because that's one of the things he does for a living. And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, cool. And when I get in touch with him every year, anytime I think about him as a person, anytime that he contacts me, it does pop into my mind, oh yeah, taxes. And then when he contacts me and he says, this is the time that you need to be sending me these things so that we can finish up your taxes, that's not being said to me by some nameless person at some company somewhere. My best friend from years ago is contacting me and saying, hey, you said you wanted to do this. You wanted to do it with me. Let's do it.
And I think that's important. Just I think the overlaying a lot of implied dynamics that we've talked about is just the fact that we are dependent or interdependent on other people. We need others. We need community and accountability for a lot of these things, whether it's implicit or explicit. And just being able to navigate some of these. Sometimes we need an intervention. When you are disoriented, if you've not been disoriented about a particular thing, you may not have enough agency or self-awareness to sort of go through that disorientation and then also like tell yourself to go through it. Like you may just be going through the emotion of it, and someone may have to, like if you're drowning, someone may have to like literally grab, stick their hand in the water.
And that's
help
why
you out.
having at least a roommate in your life who knows you, not a person that you found off Craigslist that you never talked to them, but having at least somebody that lives in your house that can tell that something's different. Yeah, that's what happens to me. Like my son will say, "Are you okay?" Or my wife will say, "You don't seem the same today. Something seems different or off." And I'll say, "Well, because I'm doing this." And they'll say, "Oh, well, what are you going to do about that? What's next?" And it's like, "Oh, right. I should get back on the horse, shouldn't I? I should go roll
right off." Ross, what are your final thoughts?
I think the thing that most stuck out to me was finding that safe place to go when you hit those obstacles. Because if I've programmed in my head that my safe place when I'm feeling disoriented is to go back to that framework, then I'm programming those dopamines or my brain chemistry, whatever, my circuitry, instead of having to mount the self-discipline to say like, oh yeah, what was that thing that I need to do in order to solve this problem? If you program yourself to associate the emotional motivation to go to that analysis tool of yours, that's a great hack right there.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because like if that safe place is to do nothing and then like just cower in a corner, but the other thing could be like doing something, but sometimes doing something might actually make it worse. So it's having that checkpoint to go, maybe I shouldn't do anything, maybe I should do something. Like having that little checkpoint, a little gate that says go out this door, go out that door, because sometimes it's better to do nothing and sometimes it's better to do something, and it's not always one or the other.
And I find for myself, because I understand I turned 50 in April, and it's taken me this long. I mean,
last April or this coming April?
This coming April, I turned 50. And somewhere along the way, I figured out for myself that I don't make any decisions when I'm feeling a strong emotion. And it made sense at first not to make big decisions when I was angry or sad. But later on, I figured out that I also don't want to make them when I'm extremely happy. I want to be able to, so that point where I go and take a little bit, right, I recognize the impact of what's happened and I go to a safe place and I rest for just a little bit before I come back to it. I want to get that emotion out of my system because I could feel like $1 million and go ahead and commit to something that future me is going to be like, why?
That's why you have 14 jet skis in your garage.
That's right. Yeah, that's a reference to a TV show or a movie?
No, it's just you just bought a bunch of jet skis because you were so happy.
I love that. I was so happy I got 14 jet skis.
But now you're trying to hide them from the repo man.
Oh, I know what it was. The TV show Loki. There's a character in it when you go to his garage in the TV show. That's what I was thinking of. You go in and he became a jet ski salesman. Then he just goes into his garage and there's just several jet skis are just everywhere. He just can't stop buying them.
Oh, I forgot about that. So cool. What else?
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts?
I think if you're seeing this and you're already a part of Jason's community on Discord and you're already working with people, when you hit one of these spots and you don't know what to do and you can't reorient or you feel really discouraged, this is a version of community that you can use. And I'm in it, and so is Jason, and so is Ross. So when you go in, if you go in and say, I'm struggling, I hit a wall and I don't really know what to do next, sometimes that's all it takes for somebody else to be able to say, well, do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to give you a piece of advice? Do you want me to get angry on your behalf and we can yell at the thing together and then we can go on? Like, like what kind of support do you need right now? That's a place where you can go for support and to figure out your next step. And the more people see that each and every one of us goes through this same process, it's not in our highlight reels that we hit walls or that we get hit by giant waves, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So now if someone's like, I actually really need more help than just like this Discord community, do you help people do this kind of thing, Jim?
You know that I do. Thanks for the pitch, Jason. untanglednarrative.com. I work with groups, I work with teams, I work with individuals, and we even have cohorts that are ongoing that you can join up whenever you want to and work on these types of things. So go to the website and connect up.
All right, so that's Jim, untanglednarrative.com. Ross, how about you?
Yeah, check out my Creature Habits app. Check out the Optimize screen. It's the fourth screen over, and it'll help you organize your tasks and goals in life, and hopefully help in a lot of stuff we were talking about.
Yeah, and this is just a gorgeous. I mean, not to try to pitch you too hard here, but holy cow! When you told me it was an app, I did not expect to go in and be met with very inspiring art. So that's
great, Jim.
I mean, I opened it up, and now I'm like, oh, I might actually use this rather than downloading it because I support you. I think I'll go in. I might go and live in this a little bit because it looks so great.
Well, I love feedback from all users. It's a fast, iterative process to make it better. So as long as I can get feedback, I can keep on making it exactly what you need it to be.
Yeah,
fantastic.
For everybody who uses it. Yeah, This is fun, you guys.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next side.
Fantastic.
Okay.